Damon and I had just gotten our marriage certificate, and we were driving home. Halfway through the journey, the car came to a sudden halt. Damon unbuckled his seatbelt and said, "Hang on a sec. I need to get out and grab something." "What are you getting? Are you feeling sick?" "No, just some essentials." With only myself left in the car, the tension eased, and a strange feeling washed over me. Was this really what marriage felt like? Damon and I had met through a blind date arranged by our families. My aunt had eagerly told me, "He's handsome, comes from a well-off family, and both his parents are high-ranking officials in the province. He works in law enforcement, he's a criminal police officer." I knew that if I turned him down, all my relatives would come knocking the next day with more introductions, so I reluctantly agreed. When we met, he was just as my aunt had described, tall, about 1.85 meters, with piercing eagle-like eyes. But when he frowned, he looked a bit intimidating and stern, so I didn't dare to look him in the eye. Our first meeting barely lasted, and I thought it was a lost cause when, 3 days later, my aunt called to say he wanted to see me again. I frowned, not really wanting to go, but thinking of Damon's fierce expression made me hesitate to refuse. I was afraid he might come looking for me, so I decided to meet him again to clarify things. He suggested we meet at the cinema. When I arrived, Damon was already there, dressed in a khaki coat over a white shirt, his long legs ending in stylish black leather shoes that gave off a hint of British charm. He looked less intimidating than the last time we met. As we stood in line for tickets, he leaned in, closing the distance between us, and a faint scent of shower gel lingered in the air. "Do you want some popcorn and a cola?" I shook my head, just wanting to get through the movie as quickly as possible. During the film, Damon was very serious. He didn't say much and kept to himself, quite straightforward. As the movie neared its conclusion, I breathed a sigh of relief. Once we stepped outside, we were met with a torrential downpour. Flashes of lightning illuminating the dark sky, and the wind carried a chill with it. Damon's car was parked across the road, and we still had a bit of a walk ahead. I hadn't anticipated such heavy rain tonight, and since I would end up getting soaked anyway, I decided to hold my bag over my head and sprint out. Just then, someone seized my wrist. His grip was firm enough to hurt a bit. When I realized it was Damon, he immediately released me. "Sorry about that." He took off his coat and offered, "Here, use this as an umbrella." "Let's share it," I suggested. Damon was tall, and his coat was large enough to cover us both. "Come closer," he said. We were so close that our arms brushed against each other, and when my arm accidentally touched his warm chest, I quickly withdrew it. Damon was half soaked, his hair wet and messy, sticking to his forehead in a disheveled manner. "Are you cold?" I shook my head. "You should dry off with a towel quickly. Be careful not to catch a cold tomorrow." As we drove home, the rain gradually eased. I unbuckled my seatbelt, bit my lip, and managed a faint smile. "Thanks for today. Go home and take a hot bath to warm up." I stepped out of the car, and the door beside me opened as well. "Do you have more work to do?" "I'm free this weekend. Would you like to grab a meal together?" Just as I was about to decline, Damon's piercing gaze stopped me, and I swallowed my words. I nodded, accepting his invitation. Before we could meet over the weekend, an incident involving a parent attacking someone at school brought Damon and me together again. It happened so unexpectedly. I was on the road responding to messages when a fierce-looking parent suddenly charged out, wielding a stick. "Are you Teacher Connie?" I nodded, still trying to grasp the situation. The stick swung down heavily toward my shoulder. "Your student was sent to the hospital because of you. He has a concussion now." I let out a muffled grunt and collapse, gasping, my voice caught in my throat. I was bewildered. I always got along well with my students, never hitting or scolding them, so how did this happen? The parent, enraged to the point of frenzy, raised the stick again, aiming for my stomach. Just then Damon appeared, kicking the man away with a fierce force. He was in his police uniform, his expression dark and serious. The parent was taken to the police station, while Damon drove me to the hospital. My right shoulder was injured. It had bruised and swollen significantly. "There's nothing too serious. I'll apply some medicine for you. Just remember to change the dressing every day when you get home." Damon frowned, his face stormy. The nurse, who had been stealing glances at Damon moments earlier, now didn't dare to breathe too loudly. Her hands trembled as she applied the medicine. "Be gentle." Her hands shook uncontrollably. I looked up. His expression wasn't any better, looking quite fierce. I felt a bit helpless. "Maybe you should step outside for a moment." He glanced at me with a cool look, nodded, and then turned to close the door behind him. "The school principal called to check in on me." I said, "Can I consider this a work injury? I can't even lift my hand to write. Take a few days off to rest at home. And come back when you're better." I had felt quite wronged about the whole incident. But when I heard I could take a few days off, my spirits lifted, and my mood brightened a bit. In the corridor, Damon stood tall, arms crossed over his chest, his lips pressed tightly together, attracting a lot of attention. Yet, his commanding presence kept everyone at a distance. "Thank you for today. Your timing was perfect," I said. "I was just passing by on business." He replied casually. That night, just as I was about to sleep, my phone lit up. Damon had sent me a message. "The investigation results are in. The injured boy just started junior high, struggles academically, and comes from a low-income family. The teacher intentionally targeted him. After he failed to turn in his homework, the teacher punished him in class. After school, the teacher called him to the office and warned him not to tell anyone. When his father came home, he found his son unconscious and rushed him to the hospital, where they diagnosed a concussion along with other injuries. When the father pressed for answers, the boy, trying to appease him, casually mentioned my name. I read the message, my feelings swirling. After a moment, I checked the time and replied, "Are you still at work?" "I'm off. I'm about to take a shower. Get some rest, good night." "Good night." As I spent more time with Damon, I noticed he was always polite and had a gentlemanly demeanor, despite his somewhat intimidating aura. I thought to myself that if I were to marry someone like him, life after marriage might be quite pleasant. So half a month later, when Damon called to ask if I wanted to get married, I didn't hesitate for long before saying yes. Damon threw a large cardboard box into the back seat, marked with the names of health products, but I didn't think much of it. He also handed me a bag of fresh fruit. When I opened it, I found a bounty of plump purple-red oranges glistening with moisture. I peeled one and took a bite. Juice exploded everywhere, flooding my mouth with a sweet, rich flavor that brightened my mood instantly. As I ate, my appetite awakened, and I couldn't help but devour several more. I squinted in delight, amazed at how sweet the oranges were, and my feelings for Damon grew fonder. Our new home was a spacious flat, elegantly decorated with minimalist furnishings that exuded quality. Damon carried a box of items into the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, revealing a glimpse of a bright red bedspread against the white walls, creating a striking contrast. After feeling dazed all morning, clarity washed over me. After all, tonight was our wedding night. The thought made my heart race, and I felt a wave of unease wash over me, my cheeks burning. Until now, I hadn't even held hands with a boy. Damon emerged from the room and glanced my way, his brow furrowed. "Are you feeling unwell?" I shook my head, feeling a bit guilty as I responded, "It's just a little warm." I opened the fridge and asked, "What do you want for lunch?" He loosened a button on his shirt and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his strong arms. I was a bit surprised. "You can cook." When I visited Damon's house before, they had a dedicated housekeeper who made delicious Chinese dishes. He nodded and smiled. When I was studying abroad, eating out was too expensive, so I usually cooked for myself. While Damon was busy in the kitchen, I occupied myself in the bedroom, tidying up clothes. I opened the wardrobe, where a range of dresses hung neatly, and beneath them was a line of brand new matching lingerie. The tags were still attached, indicating they were prepared ahead of time. As I bent down to grab clothes from my suitcase, I noticed the adjacent box was open. It was the one Damon had just brought back from the pharmacy. The tape had been peeled off, and inside was a whole box of condoms in various flavors. My face turned crimson in an instant. I looked up and spotted a new, unopened box on the bedside table, clearly set aside for tonight. With the heat making me sweat at the slightest movement, I didn't want Damon to see me looking so messy. I grabbed a change of clothes and quickly took a shower, emerging feeling refreshed. When I stepped out, Damon was just pushing open the kitchen door, and the delicious aroma wafting into the living room was irresistible. He glanced at me for a moment before quickly turning his gaze away. "Did you take a shower?" "Yeah, it's really hot. I just broke a sweat," I replied. On the table was red wine beef, caramel pudding and salad. I swallowed hard, unable to resist complimenting him. "Damon, this is amazing. You're cooking at a Michelin star level. Really delicious, right?" I had planned to maintain my composure for a little while longer, but the food was simply too tempting, and I couldn't help but indulge a bit more. In the afternoon, Damon received an urgent task and hurriedly left. I let out a sigh of relief. Being home alone felt more comfortable. I dozed off and woke up later to see a message from him. "Sorry, I won't be back for dinner tonight." Slipping on my slippers, I went downstairs to the convenience store to grab some food. I spent the evening reading and watching movies. When I glanced at the clock, it was nearly 10. Frowning, I sent him a message, but there was no response. He was probably just too busy. I ended up spending my wedding night alone. Damon called to inform me that he wouldn't be back for a week. There had been new developments in the case, and he was driving to a nearby town for the night. I understood. My parents had advised me before the wedding about the nature of Damon's job and the importance of being supportive and tolerant. The past few days have been spent eating alone, sleeping alone, and scrolling through my phone, nearly forgetting that I was a married woman. That afternoon, after getting off work, I returned home with a bag of oranges. On my way, I bumped into a neighbor I had just met days earlier. He was a university professor, exuding a refined demeanor and a gentle smile, exactly my type from before. "Teacher Connie, just getting off work?" I nodded. "Which middle school do you work at?" I smiled and told him the name of my school. "What a coincidence. My nephew goes there too. The educational environment is quite good." We chatted amiably, but as we were about to part ways, I suddenly remembered I had forgotten to buy cold medicine. Having left the window open the previous night, I had caught a chill and woke up with a stuffy nose after tossing off the covers in my sleep. Jerry, my neighbor, mentioned he had cold medicine and kindly brought me over 2 boxes. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I handed him a few oranges from my bag as a token of thanks. After my shower, I was about to head to the living room for a glass of water and take my medicine when I heard the doorknob turn. A surge of anxiety hit me. Living alone as a woman made me a little on edge. The door swung open, revealing Damon. He stood in the entryway, changing his shoes, which were splattered with mud, and his wrinkled clothes indicated he was exhausted. I felt a wave of relief wash over me and asked with concern, "Did you eat?" His voice came out hoarse. "I just grabbed something to eat outside." Damon's intense gaze settled on me. I glanced down. Dressing casually at home was a nice change. I spotted a milk-white iced silk camisole dress hanging in the closet. The fabric felt incredibly soft against my skin, and it hung loosely, almost slipping off entirely. Most importantly, I wasn't wearing anything underneath. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I walked into the room, maintaining a calm facade. After shutting the door, I quickly changed into long sleeves and pants. While it wasn't as comfortable as the dress, it felt much safer. When I stepped out, Damon was drinking water. Our eyes met, and there was something intense in his gaze. Flustered, I looked down and made my way to the sofa, hugging a pillow close to me. "I'm going to take a shower," I said, trying to inject a bit of lightness into my voice. Lost in my own thoughts, I heard him call from above. I absent-mindedly replied with a soft hum. The sound of water splashed from the bathroom. 8 minutes later, the bathroom door swung open. Damon emerged wearing a loose white tee and black shorts. His tall figure revealed long, toned arms and sleek calves. He headed to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and tilted his head back to gulp it down, his Adam's apple moving rhythmically. "Aren't you going to sleep?" His damp hair clung to his forehead, and there was a hint of moisture lingering in his dark eyes as he fixed his gaze on me. I felt uneasy under his intense stare, and my cheeks began to heat up. "It's too early. I want to watch some more TV." Damon cast a quick glance at me, before casually walking over to the entrance to turn off the lights. The room plunged into darkness, illuminated only by the TV's glow. As I sat on the sofa, our legs brushed against each other, and I was enveloped in the intoxicating masculine scent he exuded. My body tightened, palms sweaty with nervousness, and I subtly shifted away from him. Without warning, he turned, pulling me into his embrace, his strong arms securing me at the shoulders. I awkwardly twisted my neck and spoke softly. "Do you want to go rest for a bit?" He had looked weary when he returned, dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin, making him appear quite haggard. Damon slowly shook his head. "I want to stay here and watch TV with you for a while." The living room fell into a comfortable silence. We settled on a disaster movie. Initially, I struggled to focus, but the story soon captivated me. By the time the movie ended, I could hear the steady rhythm of his breathing next to me. I gently nudged him and whispered, "Damon." Before I could finish my sentence, he opened his eyes, alert, and grabbed my arm. In the dark, his cold black eyes glimmered with intensity, and his brows furrowed tightly, radiating a fierce energy. "It hurts." Damon froze for a moment and quickly let go. I stared at him wide-eyed, instinctively scooting away. Realizing my overreaction, Damon quickly apologized. "Sorry, that was just an instinctive reaction." In his line of work, even the smallest noise could trigger a heightened sense of alertness. While I understood, I still felt a bit unsettled. If he had gripped me just a little harder, I might not be able to lift a pin tomorrow. Still shaken, I patted my chest. I replied dryly, "It's okay. Just be a little more careful next time." Noticing his confusion, I felt a bit sorry for him. I added, "Really, don't overthink it, I'm fine. Just get some sleep." As I spoke, I stifled a yawn and headed into the room. When I looked back, Damon hadn't followed. I lay down and covered myself with a blanket, but my body tensed as the door opened slightly. Damon walked in holding a glass of milk. "Your mom told me you need to drink warm milk before bed," he said gently. I accepted the glass and quietly said thank you. Under his watchful gaze, I drank the milk silently, finishing the whole glass. "I'll turn off the lights now." "Okay." He reached over to turn off the lights, and then lay down next to me. I shifted slightly, nearly pressing against the edge of the bed. Moonlight seeped through the thin curtains, casting a soft glow across the bedroom. The only sounds were our steady breaths. Damon turned over. I felt my breath hitch. "Does your hand still hurt?" I shook my head, my voice a bit stiff. "No, it doesn't hurt anymore." After a moment, Damon spoke again, his voice low and husky. "Connie." "Yes, come a bit closer. You're going to fall off the bed." "Okay." I inched toward him, feeling the thin silk of my dress brush against his warm skin. My back stiffened, and sweat began to bead on my legs. The tension in the air thickened, enveloping us in an intimate atmosphere. I dared not shift my waist or legs, planning to turn and create some space between us when Damon suddenly reached out and pulled me firmly into his embrace. Heat flooded my cheeks. He wore a short-sleeved shirt, and his intense body heat seeped onto me, making beads of sweat form on my forehead. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, I turned onto my side. Our eyes met. His deep black gaze, though calm, felt like it was simmering with intensity as it rested on me. It seemed that if I didn't say something soon, we might find ourselves in an indescribable situation. I hesitantly reached out and nudged him, trying my luck. "Damon, can we sleep in separate rooms? I tend to move around a lot in my sleep and get up during the night, which might disturb you." Silence hung in the air for a moment, and after what felt like ages, I heard his voice slowly reply, "Okay, I'll sleep in the guest room." I was surprised by how quickly he agreed. "Damon, you're not upset, are you?" He let out a light laugh and shook his head. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "That's good to hear." Damon softened his voice. "Connie, I know we rushed into this marriage, and you need time to adjust. I respect your choice, but I hope you won't keep me waiting too long." He got up from the bed and opened the closet, retrieving a fresh set of bedding to take to the guest room. That night, I dreamt of rolling around in bed with Damon, and it felt so real that when I woke up the next morning, my cheeks were still warm. I scratched my head, puzzled about why I would dream of such things. Damon knocked on the door. "Connie, breakfast is ready." I usually lose my appetite in the summer and skip breakfast, but seeing the maple syrup pancakes, fruity yogurt, and fried sausages laid out on the table instantly made my stomach rumble. Damon, what time did you get up to make all this? 6 o'clock. At that hour, I would still be sound asleep in bed, my cheeks flushing slightly with embarrassment. While I was still processing this, he came over with a glass of water. Don't rush to eat just yet. It's good for your health to drink a glass of water after getting up. I looked up at him. It was only then that I noticed his hair was damp, his face slightly flushed, and he was wearing sporty shorts and a short-sleeved shirt, with his chest drenched in sweat. I could vaguely see the contours of his toned body beneath his shirt, muscular, yet not bulky, and remarkably well-proportioned. Did you just go for a run? He nodded. Yeah. You go ahead and eat. I need to shower first because I smell like sweat. Without comparison, there's no harm done. Next to Damon, I felt downright lazy. I resolved to make dinner tonight. I couldn't keep letting him do all the cooking. After work, I stopped by the supermarket and picked up a few ingredients, asking Damon's mom what dishes he enjoyed. While passing through the frozen foods section, I stumbled upon a sale on ice cream and added 6 tubs to my cart. By the time I got home, it was already dark outside, and the house was empty. I finished cooking, but Damon still hadn't returned. Glancing at the clock, I thought he should have been home by now. Just as I was about to call him, my phone rang. Connie, I'll be working late tonight, so I might be back a bit later. Okay, have you eaten yet? I'm busy right now. I'll grab something in the cafeteria soon. Be sure to get some rest, and don't wait up for me. Remember to lock the door. There's a situation here. I heard someone calling his name on the other end, and before long the call ended. Looking at the steaming pasta on the table, I went to the kitchen and grabbed a box to pack it up. I took a taxi to the criminal investigation unit. When the guard at the entrance asked for my identity, I hesitated before saying I was Damon's wife. Saying those last 2 words made me feel a bit awkward and embarrassed. But when the guard heard that, his eyes lit up, and he enthusiastically ushered me inside. When I found Damon, he was staring intently at some documents with a cigarette in his mouth, his brow deeply furrowed. I squinted. It was the first time I had seen Damon smoke. Prior to this, I hadn't caught a whiff of smoke from him, so I assumed he didn't smoke. When Damon spotted me, he looked momentarily taken aback. Once he processed it, he took a deep drag from his cigarette, flicked it into the ashtray, and jogged over to throw his jacket over my shoulders. His gaze was intense, but there was a playful glint in his eyes. People nearby started to tease Damon. Who's this? The guard chimed in, she's Damon's wife. Oh, so Damon is married now. Come on, Damon's wife has brought him dinner. It was my first visit to the criminal investigation unit, and I felt a flutter of nerves. A group of young, spirited trainees called out to me, addressing me as Damon's wife, with each one more enthusiastic than the last. I could feel my face turning bright red from embarrassment. Damon chuckled softly, thanks. Everyone. We just got our marriage certificate a little while ago, and we haven't had the wedding yet, but I'll invite you all when we do. They laughed and left us some space. With a hint of amusement in his eyes, Damon said, I have pudding in my office. I remember you like sweet treats. Want some? I raised the takeout box in my hand and smiled. I made some pasta for you and brought it over. Once inside his office, Damon shut the door behind us. He pulled out several packaged puddings from his desk drawer and handed them to me. His dark eyes lingered on me, unwilling to shift away. I felt a flush of shyness under his gaze and tried to steer the conversation. This is too much. I won't be able to finish it all. If you can't finish it, just leave it here. I'll eat it later, he replied. I felt my cheeks warm slightly. My dad had always been the only one to eat my leftovers when I was growing up, so having a second man do the same felt strangely endearing. Just make sure to eat your pasta. It won't taste good if it sits too long. Have you had a chance to eat yet? I shook my head. I was too eager to deliver his meal after cooking, and had completely forgotten about my own appetite. I'm not hungry right now, I said casually. Given that he trains daily, Damon has developed a hearty appetite, so I prepared a larger portion for him. He retrieved a pair of disposable chopsticks from the drawer and handed them to me. Let's eat together. Damon remarked, you really need to eat more. You're too thin, and your waist is too small. His unexpected comment caught me off guard, and I ended up choking. My face flushed red from coughing, and I could feel beads of sweat forming. I was thoroughly uncomfortable. Damon quickly stood up and patted my back to help me recover. Drink some water. I grabbed the cup and gulped down some water, finally managing to calm myself as I turned to Damon. He was frowning, his expression serious, looking 100 times more intimidating than usual. It's your fault for saying something so ridiculous. That's why I choked. He didn't reply, simply stepping outside and closing the door behind him. Was this what we called an argument? Watching him disappear into the night from the window left me with an inexplicable feeling of loss. 8 minutes later, Damon returned, carrying a bag filled with assorted candies. He seemed unfazed and peeled open a lemon-flavored candy. Open your mouth. The sweet and sour candy melted in my mouth, and I felt much better. Damon asked gently, how do you feel? Is it better now? I nodded. Just wait a moment. I'll finish up, and then we can head home together. He settled back in front of the computer, deep in concentration. I usually prefer to work alone without anyone nearby, so while Damon was reviewing some documents, I decided to step outside for a short walk. On my way, I bumped into his colleagues, who were tall, handsome, and quite friendly. Connie, let's exchange contact info. I'll add you to our group chat. Connie, our team leader Damon, didn't have a girlfriend before. The director tried to set him up on a blind date, but the girl thought he was too intense and too busy with work. Jack has a great sense of humor and can easily make people laugh with just a few words. Connie, it's time to go. Damon stood tall behind me, holding a briefcase and a thermos. Goodbye, Connie. I smiled and waved to Jack. Damon was driving. Is Jack part of your team? Yes, he is. He's quite good looking. Does he have a girlfriend? As we stopped at a red light, Damon turned his head, narrowing his eyes with a hint of danger in his tone. Why do you ask? What are you thinking? Jack is pretty handsome, has a good build, and is quite funny. I thought about introducing him to my friend Becky. He doesn't have a girlfriend. Once we got out of the car, Damon walked around, opened the door, and took my hand as we headed home. As we left, I noticed the pot hadn't been washed, and the leftover pasta on the table had gone cold. Damon said, you go rest. I'll take care of the kitchen. You've worked all day and now have to work overtime. You did too. And you came back to cook dinner. Damon quickly and efficiently washed the dishes, his movements precise and organized. Having visited Damon's house a few times, I knew he had maids, so I assumed he wouldn't have to do these chores. I thought he was a spoiled rich kid, but his actual demeanor contradicted my expectations. He cooked and cleaned better than I did. At this hour, there wasn't much on TV, so I grabbed my pajamas and headed for a shower. While getting dressed, I lost my balance and fell hard. Oh my God! I gasped in surprise. I lifted my pant leg to reveal a red, swollen patch that looked alarming, but thankfully, there was no blood. I often bumped into things, and usually brushed it off without a second thought. As I hobbled out the door, I caught Damon's eye. He was holding a change of clothes and was shirtless. I'm done washing. You can take your shower now. He looked directly at me and gently asked, did you fall? How did you know? I heard the noise. Damon glanced down. Let me see your leg. I shook my head. It's nothing serious. Really, you don't need to look. He remained silent, standing in front of me with a determined expression, as if saying I wouldn't be leaving until I showed him. Reluctantly, I extended my left leg and rolled up my pants, accidentally brushing the wound. I gasped in pain. Damon squatted down to inspect the injury, his brow furrowing. Does it hurt a lot? It's manageable. I can tough it out. Sit on the sofa. I'll apply some medicine. Can I walk? Do you want me to let you carry me? His concern seemed excessive for just a few steps. I can walk on my own. He retrieved a first aid kit, pulling out cotton swabs and iodine. As he treated the wound, I found myself getting a bit bored and started to sneak glances at his hands. His hands were quite handsome, with long fingers and neatly trimmed nails. I remembered hearing from Damon's mom before the wedding that he played the piano exceptionally well. It's going to sting a bit when I disinfect it, so just hang in there. Before I had a chance to brace myself, the iodine touched the wound, and the pain was unbearable. I instinctively tried to kick my leg, but he quickly grasped my calf. Damon's expression was serious as he said, "Connie, don't move around too much, be careful not to bump your injury." The thin layer of callus on his palm felt slightly itchy when he touched me, and I stiffened, afraid to even breathe. His arms were impressively thick, nearly as large as my calf, exuding strength. Before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "Damon, your arms are so muscular." He raised his head, his deep gaze locking onto mine. "It's from training regularly." Once he confirmed there were no other injuries, Damon visibly relaxed. On my pale, soft calf, I noticed several fingerprints likely left by him just a moment ago. He walked into the kitchen and returned with a glass of milk, then took his pajamas into the bathroom. My mom called to check on how married life was treating me. I casually said a few nice things to brush her off. "My dear daughter, when can you come home for dinner? I miss you so much. I'll ask Damon when he's free." I stood up and approached the bathroom door. "When are you free?" "My mom wants us to come home for dinner." Silence followed. Could the sound of the water be too loud for him to hear? I called out again, "Damon, when are you free? My mom wants us to come home." A deep voice responded from within Sunday. Without overthinking it, I told my mom we'd go back on Sunday. When the bathroom door swung open, I saw he was only in his boxers, revealing his trim waist and defined muscles. His hair was wet, and water droplets trailed down his ear, pooling along his sharp jawline. I stole a quick glance, but when Damon turned to look at me, I quickly shifted my focus back to the TV, feigning indifference. Inside, I couldn't help but think, his physique is really impressive. By the weekend, I was free from early classes and took the chance to sleep in a little longer. Damon knocked on the door saying, "Connie, my tie is in the closet. May I come in?" I rolled over and called out, "Come in." He gently pushed the door open. As I blinked my eyes open, I was instantly awakened by Damon's striking appearance. Typically, Damon dressed in casual attire, but today he was impeccably suited up, with a crisp shirt tucked neatly into his belt. His tousled hair was combed back, and his deep-set eyes made him look tall and commanding, just like a dashing husband from a romance novel. I was momentarily stunned. In that moment, as our eyes locked, I could feel my heart racing. How could such a handsome man be my husband? It felt almost unreal. Noticing my starry-eyed admiration, Damon raised an eyebrow with a faint smile and asked, "Are you daydreaming? Do you want to sleep a bit more?" I shook my head and rolled around playfully on the bed. "Damon, you should wear suits like this every day. You look incredibly handsome." "Not a chance. This is just for when I'm around." I chose a light white dress from the closet that complemented my fair skin and grabbed a necklace from the jewelry box. This necklace was a gift from Damon, and I hadn't worn it since he bought it. I wasn't very knowledgeable about jewelry, but it looked stunning. I later learned it cost over $10,000 when I spotted it in a store. Damon opened the door again, now holding a watch in his hand. His eyes silently roamed over me, and I noticed his Adam's apple move as he asked in a husky voice, "Can I kiss you?" I caught a glimpse of my flushed profile in the mirror. My voice trembled as I said yes. Damon stepped closer, cupping my face, and pressed a cool kiss on my forehead. I was a little taken aback. Why a kiss on the forehead? But I didn't dare to bring it up. Damon gently pinched my earlobe and said softly, "Put this watch on." "When did you get this?" "I bought it a few days ago while shopping. I saw it and thought it would make a perfect wedding gift for you." That day, we had planned to go to a movie after work, and he must have bought it then. Having arrived before me, the jewelry I wore altogether was worth more than 2 years of my salary. I started thinking about what gift I should get for Damon next. "I haven't given you a wedding gift yet. The best gift is not keeping me waiting too long. Just extend your hand. I'll put it on for you." As he fastened the watch strap, it dawned on me what he really meant, and my face felt like it was on fire from embarrassment. He looked so serious and aloof, yet he could be cheekier than anyone when he wanted to. After getting out of the car and opening the trunk, I was taken aback by the sight of it stuffed with items. There were dozens of gifts of various sizes. The last time I was this surprised was when Damon brought his whole family to visit us, almost filling a truck with their offerings. Our house was overflowing, so my mom had given many of the gifts to other uncles and aunts in the family. I couldn't help but chuckle. You already brought so many gifts last time. Why did you buy even more? Our house is nearly overflowing. You're just too generous. Damon ruffled my hair, reassuringly saying, "It's really nothing special." My mom was becoming increasingly pleased with Damon as her son-in-law. Once we got home, she insisted he relax and not lift a finger. After dinner, Damon eagerly volunteered to wash the dishes. My dad, sitting on the sofa, remained as steady as a rock. My mom kicked him lightly in annoyance, saying, "What are you sitting there for? Go wash the dishes." "Mom, I'll take care of the dishes, you two should rest." Damon took the plates to the kitchen, eager to lend a hand. Once he finished washing up, he brought out a plate of cut fruit, making my mom nod in approval. Damon really knows how to take care of people. Despite his serious demeanor and few words, Damon was great at chatting with the elders, making my mom laugh with just a few well-placed comments. As they chatted away, I took the opportunity to search online for gift ideas for men. Before long, the conversation shifted to when we would hold our wedding and when we would start a family. I could feel my cheeks heat up silently, a bit awkward. I stood up and stretched, saying, "I'm going to bed." Once I lay down on my familiar soft bed, I quickly fell asleep. In my sleepy haze, I touched something hard, and the sensation felt surprisingly nice. A hoarse voice came from above, "Connie, don't move." I blinked in surprise, noticing a handsome profile beside me, his hair slightly tousled, and my hand had somehow ended up resting on his abs. Glancing down at myself, I realized I wasn't looking much better. With just a thin blanket in the summer, I had kicked it aside because I felt too hot, and somehow, my skirt had slid up to my stomach, leaving my shorts exposed. Taking advantage of Damon still being asleep, I cautiously pulled my skirt back down. After sorting that out, my heart began to race. When had he come in? Had he seen me in that state? When I looked up, I saw he had woken up at some point, his intense gaze resting on me with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. So he had witnessed my earlier antics? "Damon, did you see everything just now?" He didn't answer, lowering his gaze as he gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. The mood subtly shifted. "Connie, do you know how to kiss?" I gazed at him, confusion written on my face, and shook my head. He chuckled softly, his eyes deep and inviting. "I'll teach you." His cool lips pressed against mine, and I couldn't help but shiver slightly. "Don't be nervous, remember to breathe." Once I found my rhythm, Damon held my shoulders and deepened the kiss. When it ended, my heart was racing, and I felt completely relaxed in his embrace. I decided not to head back tonight. After dinner, my mom encouraged me to take Damon out for a walk. There's a lake nearby, so we planned to go there for a stroll. On the way, we bumped into a familiar neighbor. "Connie, is this your boyfriend?" "No, he's my husband." The neighbor seemed surprised. "He's really handsome." After exchanging pleasantries, I continued walking with Damon. By the time we were on our way back, I was so exhausted that I could barely move. Damon, however, looked as if nothing was bothering him. "You really need to get more exercise. How about I take you running in the mornings from now on?" I quickly waved my hands. No, that's not necessary." I was sweaty and sticky, so I squatted down to dig through the drawer for my pajamas. I searched for ages but couldn't find them, leaving the drawer in disarray. "Mom, where are my pajamas? Did you put them away?" "I haven't touched anything. They should be in the drawer. Just look for them." After a long search without success, I was starting to feel impatient. "Just tell me what they look like, and I'll find them." "They're pink, with a cartoon strawberry design on the front. I used to love those pajamas, they were so cute. Did you find them?" Damon shook his head. "Never mind, the more I look, the harder it seems to find them." Most of my summer clothes had been moved to Damon's place, leaving me with just my high school uniform, some short-sleeved shirts, and winter clothes. Between the uniform and the short sleeves, I opted for the short-sleeved shirt. It was a little big, but it just about covered my thighs. The room came with its own bathroom, and Damon was seated on the bed, flipping through my comic books while I took my clothes into the bathroom. When I emerged, he was searching for other books. Did you finish the comic? His gaze darkened slightly. Yeah, is there a next volume? I nodded, there is. However, it was tucked away pretty deep. I had stored all my magazines and comics in a box, which I had secretly hidden under the bed to keep it from my parents. The box was positioned toward the back, so I crouched down to fish it out. I felt a slight chill behind me and tugged at the hem of my shirt. As I stood up, I didn't notice, and I accidentally bumped my head on the edge of the bed. Does it hurt? I've been a bit unlucky lately. I keep getting hurt. Let me see where you're hurt. He turned me slightly, and his gaze fell on his neck, where the collar of his shirt was slightly open, revealing his Adam's apple and faint veins. For a moment, I completely forgot about my headache. It's not that bad. Just sit there and take a break. Damon gently pressed me down on the edge of the bed, his eyes becoming more intense. Are you not going to read the comic? It's right there in the box. He looked contemplative. I'm done with that. There are more important things to take care of. I opened my mouth to reply, but before I could gather my thoughts, I felt the warmth of his lips pressing against mine. I recently bought a new scale online because the old one at home was broken. When I stepped on it, it registered 8 pounds more than before. The dress I wore last year felt a bit tight now. I was feeling down, and alarms started ringing in my head. Damon, please don't make my portion for dinner tonight. Starting today, I'm going on a diet. Damon reached out and rubbed my waist a few times, then concluded, you've gained a little weight. But it feels nice. I was at a loss for words. I devised a crash diet plan and decided I wouldn't eat dinner anymore. Damon pointed out the flaw without hesitation. If you do that, you'll rebound and end up gaining weight even faster. I turned my head, feeling on the verge of tears. So what should I do? He suggested, let's go hiking this weekend. You really don't exercise enough. You get winded just climbing 2 flights of stairs. But you're always so busy. Do you even have time this week? I do. I just wrapped up a case recently. Damon's work is really demanding. Sometimes he gets called out in the middle of the night, and I won't see him for days. The night before our trip, I was excited, tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. This was going to be our first real outing together. I packed a ton of snacks and water into my bag. Halfway up the mountain, I felt like tossing the bag away. I was completely drained. Weakly, I asked Damon, is it too late to head back down now? Connie, just hang in there a little longer. We're almost there. I pouted, you said that a little while ago too. Damon has been exercising for years, so he has great stamina. While I was sweating like crazy, he looked as if nothing fazed him. Hop on. I'll carry you. No thanks, I can walk on my own. There were plenty of people around us, from elderly folks in their 50s and 60s to little kids as young as 5, which made me feel self-conscious. By the time we reached the top of the mountain, my throat was dry. Damon was looking for a spot to pitch the tent. I opened my backpack and bent down to grab some water when my hand brushed against a small box. I remembered not bringing this kind of snack with me. So could it be something Damon packed? When I opened the box, I found several small packets inside, each filled with condoms. My face turned bright red, and my heart started racing. But tonight was bound to disappoint someone. Teacher Connie. I turned around to see one of my students. Jay, did you come camping with your parents? The little boy was excited to see me. I came with my uncle. He pointed to a tall, handsome man walking toward us. As he got closer, he looked increasingly familiar. It was Jerry, our neighbor. I was surprised. You're Jay's uncle? Jerry nodded and ruffled Jay's hair. That's right, I'm his uncle. His parents are on a business trip, so I took him out for a little vacation. Teacher Connie, my uncle grilled some barbecue. Would you like to come eat some? I shook my head and smiled. Thank you, but I brought my own food. Did you come by yourself? I shook my head again. I came with my boyfriend. Jerry glanced in the direction I was pointing, smiled wryly. Then I won't disturb you. Damon was very capable. He had set up a tent in just over 10 minutes. Were you just talking to a friend? No, that was my student's uncle. He's also our neighbor. Damon, I want some barbecue. I felt a little tempted when Jay invited me to join them for barbecue. I brought a grill, and the meat has already been marinated, so it's ready to go. Let me help you. You go play inside the tent. The smoke from the barbecue is too much. I'll take care of it. Half an hour later, Damon came over with a plate of grilled skewers and called me out to eat. After just a few bites, I was full. The heat made my appetite disappear. I'm done eating. You can have the rest. He skillfully took the skewers from me and took a bite. Damon, I'm feeling sleepy. Why don't you lie down and rest for a while? It's too hot to sleep. He pulled a fan out of his bag. You sleep and I'll fan you. The fan brushed over me, bringing a slight coolness. Before long, I was fast asleep. When I finally woke up, the sun had set, and it was dark all around. Damon opened the tent and looked at me. Awake now? I nodded. His short hair was still wet and dripping. The water ran down his chiseled face and splashed onto his chest. He had changed into a fresh set of clothes. What did you go do? His voice was slightly hoarse. There's a lake nearby. I just went for a swim. As Damon stepped into the tent, an undeniable masculine aura swept over me, wrapping around me like waves. I instinctively shifted to the side. A warm, powerful hand wrapped around my waist, pulling me into his lap. His dark, narrow eyes fixed on mine, and in a tone that was as serious as it could be, he asked, Connie, I want to kiss you. Is that okay? The back of my ears flushed instantly, feeling hot, and my cheeks burned as well. If he wanted to kiss me, why ask? Blushing, I stammered, After the kiss, our breaths became erratic. My heart raced, and I could hear his heavy breathing, mixed with the sound of him swallowing hard. His voice was husky. Is it okay? I'm on my period. Next to us was a guest house, and Damon had already booked a room there in advance. When the door swung open, he headed straight for the bathroom. After his shower, I found him on the balcony, shrouded in darkness as he smoked, the tip of his cigarette flickering like a tiny star in the night. I settled down and started applying my skincare products. When I turned around, Damon stood behind me, toying with a lock of his hair. I'll help you dry your hair, he offered. The hairdryer's in the drawer, I replied. As he started drying my hair, his hands began to wander a bit too freely. His short hair brushed against my chin and cheek, feeling slightly prickly. Suddenly, the sharp ring of a phone broke the silence from the living room. Damon frowned, took a deep breath, and went out to take the call. When he returned, his expression was serious, and his dark eyes looked at me with a mix of emotions. There's a case. I need to leave now. I felt a twinge of disappointment. It was a rare chance for us to have fun together. All right then. Drive safely, I said, standing up to see him off. He stood there unmoving, his gaze fixed on me, tinged with a trace of expectation. Why aren't you going yet? Isn't the task urgent? From his earlier conversation, it sounded like the matter was pressing. I need to give you a kiss first, he said. After the kiss, I felt a bit lightheaded, nearly swaying on my feet. The phone rang again. As he answered, he wrapped his other arm around my waist, pulling me close. His teammate was calling to rush him, and Damon's voice became somewhat colder as he spoke, clearly reluctant. It was as if someone was interrupting his dinner. Hurry up and go. Everyone else is waiting. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, inhaling deeply. I'll make it up to you next time, he said, his tone carrying a hint of a promise, as if we were settling scores after the harvest. When I went inside and looked in the mirror, I noticed my lips were red and swollen, my cheeks flushed, and my nightgown was slightly rumpled from our embrace. After Damon left, I was left alone in the house, feeling a chill that I hadn't experienced even when I lived by myself. That night, I accidentally had a nightmare where Damon got hurt on a case, and it felt all too real. I quickly made a video call to check on him. I realized it was only 5 in the morning, and he should be resting. I hung up the video call immediately. The next moment he called me back. His eyes looked slightly sunken, and a rough stubble shadowed his jaw. His voice was hoarse. What's wrong? Once I confirmed he was okay, the tension in my heart eased. But seeing him so worn out made my heart ache. It's nothing. I just wanted to see you. What time did you go to sleep? Did I wake you up? I just got into bed. Then you should hurry and sleep. I'll let you go. Connie, did you have a nightmare? He was perceptive. He saw right through my thoughts. He lowered his gaze, sounding guilty. I'm sorry. It's okay, you should rest. I won't disturb you. Don't hang up. I feel better knowing you're there. I got up to use the bathroom, and I could hear his calm breathing through the video. After listening for a while, I eventually drifted off to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the video call had already ended. Damon had sent me a few recent photos and several videos. When you miss me, just take a look at these, he said. I opened the message and saw a photo of him shirtless. Damon had an impressive physique, standing at 1.85 meters with well-defined muscles. My cheeks burned as I stared at it. I chose the best picture to set as my screensaver. This case was dragging on longer than expected. He'd be away for half a month. He was so busy with work. And the calls I received from him were squeezed in during his breaks. On Thursday, as I left work, it started pouring rain outside. It was still daytime, yet the sky was overcast and the air felt humid. I had checked the weather report that morning, which said it would rain, so I brought an umbrella. But seeing the downpour now, I knew the umbrella wouldn't do much. Frowning, I decided to call a taxi home. The driver canceled on me, saying he couldn't reach me because of the traffic. Miss Connie, would you like to ride with my uncle? My uncle drove here today, Jay piped up, candy in his mouth while being led by someone. Jerry said, hop in, it's on our way. Sorry to trouble you, I replied gratefully. Once inside, Jerry handed me a bag of fried chicken, and Jay's eyes sparkled with excitement. Thanks, Uncle. Hope you find a girlfriend soon. Jerry burst into laughter. I was surprised. With your good looks, how come you're still single? He focused on the road ahead. I just haven't found the right one. Jay offered me a chicken leg from the box, eager to share, which made me feel a little shy. Plus, Jerry had helped me out a few times already. Once I got home, I turned on the TV while making a cake. And I remembered Jay mentioning that today was his birthday. To return the favor, I baked a chocolate cake and brought it over as a thank you. Jay and Jerry welcomed me warmly, inviting me to join them for dinner. Miss Connie, my uncle ordered pizza too. Sit down and help us finish it. Yeah, we don't want it to go to waste, Jerry added. Midway through the meal, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was Damon. Hello. Hey, babe. Where are you? Next door. There was a brief pause. You're back. I stood up and gave Jerry an apologetic smile. My husband's back. He nodded. Got it. Thanks for the cake. Miss Connie, your cake is delicious, Jay said cheerfully. I smiled, giving his hair a quick ruffle. When I got home, the living room was empty. I could hear the sound of water trickling from the bathroom. Damon was likely showering. Since he'd been gone, I hadn't bought many groceries, so there were only some eggs left in the fridge. I fried 3 eggs in the kitchen, adding a drizzle of ketchup on the side. When I came out, Damon was standing in the living room, dressed in a black t-shirt and lounge pants. His broad shoulders and muscular frame subtly defined beneath the fabric. His dark gaze fixed on me. I felt my cheeks warm under his intense look, and I lowered my eyes. Dinner's ready, I murmured. He sat down and ate the eggs quickly, almost a bit too intently. I wasn't sure if it was just me, but Damon seemed a little annoyed. I had a pretty good guess as to why. It was raining today, so Jerry picked up his nephew and gave me a ride home. He's helped me a lot, so I baked a cake to take over. It's his nephew's birthday today, so I thought it would be a nice way to return the favor. I explained everything to him. He looked up, setting down his fork, not with the frustration I'd expected, but with a look of genuine regret. I'm sorry, Connie. My job keeps me from being there as much as I'd like. Like today, when it was raining so hard I couldn't come pick you up. I nodded. I understand. Not wanting to dwell on it, I switched topics. The balcony light went out. I haven't gotten around to fixing it. I'll pick up a new bulb and fix it in a bit. Go shower first, so you don't catch a cold. I'll take care of the dishes. After my bath, I felt so much better. I reached for my pajamas, but realized I'd forgotten to bring them. Damon, I forgot my pajamas. Could you grab them for me? I called a few times, but there was no response. He must have gone downstairs to get the bulb, since I was alone. I wrapped a towel around myself and walked out. Just as I reached the living room, the door clicked open. We locked eyes, both frozen in surprise. I quickly darted into the bedroom and locked the door. Once dressed, I lay on the bed, scrolling through my phone, the awkward moment already fading from my mind. Then there was a soft knock at the door. "Connie, I brought you some milk. You can come in. It's locked." I hopped off the bed to open the door, then drank the milk he'd brought. Just like always, I said goodnight and turned to close the door. The door stopped short of closing. I paused, a little startled. "Something on your mind?" He swallowed, his voice dropping to a husky murmur. "We're not quite finished yet." He stepped forward, his warm hand on my waist, his intense gaze holding mine. "Isn't it time we made this marriage a bit more official?" A shiver of anticipation ran through me. Seizing the moment, Damon scooped me up and laid me onto the bed, his kiss deeper and more passionate than ever. 3 hours later, his hair was damp, a faint blush lingering on his handsome face. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Our eyes met, a blush creeping up as I quickly closed my eyes and buried my face in the blankets. The sheets were a mess, and Damon lifted the cover. "You're all hot and sweaty. Are your legs sore? Want me to carry you to the shower?" Embarrassed, I shot him a look, then made my way to the bathroom, steadying myself. It hadn't been as uncomfortable as I'd imagined, just a bit unfamiliar, though Damon had been as gentle as he could. When I came back, fresh sheets were already on the bed. I was exhausted and barely made it to the pillow before drifting off. The next morning, I woke to the warmth, sticky with sweat, my pajamas clinging to my skin. Above me, his sleepy, husky voice broke the silence, leaving my mind blank. "Not going for a run? Today, I thought I'd try a different workout." An hour later, we pulled up to the campus gate. Just as I stepped out, he called, "Don't forget your breakfast." I turned to see him looking refreshed, humming a tune, clearly in a great mood. "I'll come pick you up this afternoon." 8 months into our marriage, my period was late. I went to the pharmacy, bought a test, and checked 10 times. Every single one came back with 2 lines. The only time we hadn't been careful was right after our wedding last month. We were exhausted when we got home, too tired to even shower. But Damon had been unusually energized, kissing and holding me over and over. I nudged him, muttering, "Too tired? I really don't want to move." "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." "Seriously? Just that once?" That evening, when Damon came home from work, he called out from the doorway, "Hey babe, I brought fried chicken." I buried my face in the pillow, not exactly in the mood to talk. Pushing open the door, he looked at me, puzzled. "What's up?" My voice came out a little muffled. "Damon, I think I might be pregnant." He paused, processing, then broke into a big grin. When the results came back, it was official. I was expecting. That night, lying in bed, I felt a sense of wonder I'd never known. There was a tiny life growing inside me. From that moment on, Damon came home earlier than ever and started cooking most of our meals. He still had the occasional case, but he made sure I was looked after. My father-in-law, not wanting to leave anything to chance, arranged for a maid to help with household chores. On New Year's Day, our baby arrived safely. We named him Peter. Damon was now officially promoted to dad.